Welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. This how-to podcast is focused on empowering you to live your best life by incorporating the principles of the law of attraction, neuro-linguistic programming, emotional freedom technique tapping, meditation, and other spiritual teachings. I'm Jeannie Hall, author, certified NLP, EFT, TFT practitioner, and creative empowerment coach. Let's get you empowered. Hello, and welcome to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. I'm Jeannie Hall, author and creative empowerment coach, and this is episode 43, Anger, Pitfalls and Advantages. And we've all experienced the emotion of anger at one time or another. It's just a natural part of being human. So today, I'm going to be discussing the pitfalls and the advantages of anger, because anger is an emotion that is considered both acceptable and unacceptable in our society. For example, when someone is grief-stricken, especially if that person happens to be a guy, an expression of anger is often more accepted by his friends than desperate sobbing would be. And to give you another example, on the comedy show, That 70s Show, there's an episode where Eric, who is the main young character, his grandmother passes away. And his mom tells him about the 5 stages of grief, which are denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But his stern dad, Red Foreman, comically interrupts, saying, "This family only has 2 stages, anger and drinking." And it's all played for laughs, and it's a hilarious episode. But ultimately, everyone in the family has to go through all 5 stages before they can really heal. Another event that happens in that same episode is that Eric gets involved in a bar fight. And there's a couple things going on. 1, he's underage. And 2, his inability to cope and express himself in any other way but anger leads him to lash out physically at complete strangers. In real life, such a situation could have resulted in a criminal assault charge, and that's not an outcome I imagine any of us really want. In the Abraham Hicks book, Ask and It Is Given, anger is listed as 17th out of 22 emotional states. At the top of the scale, at number 1, are the enjoyable states of joy, appreciation, empowerment, freedom, and love. And at the bottom of that same scale, at number 22, are the undesirable states of fear, grief, depression, despair, and powerlessness. At number 17, anger isn't near as bad as despair is. I mean, when we think about a person in despair, think about that. What do they act like? What do they look like? A lot of the times they're all by themselves. They seclude themselves in a dark room. They will stay in bed for days. And when we think about someone in that state, we usually picture someone who is pretty much totally given up on their life. And they're in pretty much the worst state possible. Whereas anger, by contrast, means you're still willing to fight for something you believe in. You're still getting out of bed. You're still living your life in some way. But if you're going through a difficult and painful event, it can also mean that you're dealing with things in a different way than you usually would. And while staying angry often feels better than giving in to sorrow, it can make you feel more in control, to just stay pissed off all the time. Even if that means you're yelling and screaming more than you usually do, there can be some negative consequences to that too. If you're angry all the time and you have children at home, for example, are you yelling and screaming at them when you don't really want to be? Are you yelling and screaming at a job where this sort of interaction with coworkers or bosses or customers or clients could get you fired. There's always more to it than the outside simplicity of just being mad. But I do get it. Giving in to the emotion of sorrow and letting yourself express it is highly uncomfortable to most of us. We'll often go to great lengths to avoid crying about something. So you may be sitting there listening to this and asking, Jeannie, feeling sad sucks, so why should I let go of my anger if it makes me feel strong? And the truth is, you don't have to. You have free will and can do whatever you want with certain consequences. But here's the thing. Anger is one of those wolf in sheep's clothing emotions. You'll never heal and find peace in your life until you let go of your anger enough to experience the emotion lying underneath it. And you may be saying again, but that feels awful, Jeannie. And I'm not going to lie. It may. In fact, it probably will. But that awfulness will be temporary. Allowing yourself to feel the disappointment of a dream crashing and burning is not pleasant. Allowing yourself to feel pain on an emotional level, it sucks. But it is necessary for you to be able to move on, for you to be able to go forward from there. Because if you stay stuck in anger, you're just stuck in anger. And I think if you're really honest with yourself, you realize that you do want to heal. And anger may feel better than despair. But you know what feels better than anger? Most other emotions. It's 17th on that scale out of 22. So that means there's 16 other emotions that are better than anger. So here's some stuff that feels better. Doubt feels better. Doubt's sucky too, right? But it feels better than anger does. Blame. Frustration feels better. And going on up that scale, of course, contentment feels better. Happiness feels better. Joy, love, and appreciation all feel way better than anger does. So that's why you should give yourself permission to move past anger. Because sometimes the only way out is through. You may have to move through anger to get to that sorrow and grief that you need to experience to move forward. You may have to move through tears and depression. You'll have to move through your fears to make the progress you so wish you could make. And yes, it may hurt. Yes, it may scare the shit out of you. But being willing to look those scariest of emotions in the eye and say, "Bring it on, bitch," will free you like nothing else will. You can look those emotions up and down, side to side, and say, "I can take it. I'm going to take you on." You can totally do it. It's just a choice you make. You can beat this situation and come out the winner in the end. If you're willing to have faith in yourself. One thing I always suggest when going through any kind of emotional upheaval or turmoil is to get help. Overcoming tough times is so much easier with professional support. So whether you decide to see a counselor, a mental health expert, or a life coach like myself, that can make the difference between succeeding more quickly or suffering longer than you have to. Often the deepest types of blocks are caused by an underlying pain that hasn't been sufficiently dealt with. So reach out and get the help that you need. If my message resonates with you today, I invite you to work directly with me. So if you sign up for one of my free, valuable mini sessions, this is what we'll discuss. What short-term and long-term goals you'd like to reach. I will diagnose the biggest obstacles I believe are standing in your way. I'll explain what you should focus on based on what you've shared with me, on my training, and on my experience. I'll then share a strategy and next steps for you to take going forward. And I'll give you my honest opinion on how far you can go based on your goals. This will be my commitment to you based on our conversation. So by the end of our call, you'll be crystal clear on whether or not my program is right for you. And you won't feel any doubts or fears because you'll know what steps to take with confidence. There's also no obligation tied to this call. It's just the next step in finding out if I can help you. If this sounds good to you, hit the link in the show notes to schedule your 30-minute mini session with me. If you're listening to this, there is a reason. I believe there are no coincidences. Because anytime you need help, help will be provided for you. Or maybe if you don't believe this message was meant for you, it can help someone you know. If you think anyone out there might be suffering or struggling in some way, please share this podcast with them. My goal is to make a positive difference in the lives of others, even if it means directing them to someone other than myself. Because you are so much more than this emotion that's been weighing you down. And I know you are capable and strong, even when you're not angry. So take a chance on yourself. Invest in yourself. Empower yourself. And speaking of empowerment, may you always have an empowered day, week, month, and year. Bye-bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Create Your Empowered Self podcast. If you've enjoyed this content or found it helpful, please let me know by leaving a review. I upload podcasts every Wednesday and Saturday, so subscribe to receive these regular updates. Now, go out there and live a more empowered life.